Good morning, almost good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to show a short video before we get started here.
Today, many of the best examples of innovation in business or in education or in society or in government are coming from young people who are using the web as this powerful tool to change the model. So this is a whole new mode of production that's emerging. The internet it's not about, putting a video onto YouTube or creating a gardening community online or having a cool website or a government portal. This is a new mode of production that's emerging. It's beginning to fundamentally change the way that we orchestrate capability in society to innovate, to create goods and services, to govern, to educate. That's the meaning of the web. For those who've been fortunate enough to grow up digital, their brains are actually different, because how you spend your time during extended adolescence, age 8 to 18, is the number one predictor of what your brain will be like. This is the time when the human brain gets built, the wiring and synaptic connections of the brain. And if you spend 24 hours a week watching TV like my generation did, you get a certain kind of brain. If, on the other hand, you spend an equivalent amount of time being the user, the actor, the initiator, the collaborator, the rememberer, the organizer, that gives you a different kind of brain as well. This is the defining characteristic of this generation. And as they come into the workforce, the marketplace, and society, there's no more powerful force to change every institution. And there's a lot of cynicism about the generation. They're net addicted, glued to the screen, losing their social skills. There's a book called The Dumbest Generation that says that the digital age is stupefying young people. Well, the only trouble with this negative view of young people is no data to support it. This is fiction. No, it's the smartest generation ever. Volunteering amongst high school and university students is at an all-time high, and civic action became political action with the Obama campaign. In the U.S., the percent of kids that are clean in high school that don't do drugs or alcohol is up year over year for 15 years. IQ is up year over year for many years. SAT scores are at an all-time high. It's never been tougher to get into the best universities. This is a generation that we can be enormously hopeful about. And let's face it, my generation is leaving them a world that is full of big, serious, systemic, and deep problems. You think about where we're at in human history. I don't think this is just a recession. I think it's a punctuation point, that we're going from something old to something new. We need to listen to young people, embrace their culture, adopt their tools, and change our organizations. And if we do that, we'll have better performance, better innovation, and institutions and organizations that are more appropriate for the 21st century.
Well, as you can see from that video, technology is certainly transforming our society, and as many of you in the room know very well, it's presenting its own unique set of challenges as you manage our current ways of learning and education, and you're forced to quickly adapt and change to this rapid pace of technology changes as we look at the move to 2020. If you look at education technology, connected learning, and the rise of the network society, it's certainly presenting challenges to the established ways of learning, teaching, and really even the very nature of knowledge itself, frankly. As the video depicts, we're rapidly moving towards what we at Ericsson call the network society. And really ICT is really unlocking the full potential of learning and education by redefining what the traditional learning models look like. We predict there'll be 50 billion connected devices. That's 50 billion with a B by the year 2020. And certainly that's going to help unlock the full potential of learning and education by redefining traditional learning models. It's just a starting point for new ways of innovating, collaborating, and learning, we see it as. So if you will, imagine a world where everything that could benefit from a connection will have one. Imagine a world where connectivity enables rich communication across the entire campus community. And imagine a world where students, educators, and the institution can really capitalize on the full potential that this technology can bring. Today, what we'd hope to do here with our panelists is set the stage for our insights on the rapidly changing technology based on our experience in North America as well as globally. And most importantly, hopefully share with you how we believe some of our great solutions and our expertise in the space can help you unlock your full potential across your campus community. So I think with that, I'd like to turn to our panelists. I'll ask them to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their area of expertise. John, you want to start?
Hello, everyone. My name is John Barney. I head channel development for Ericsson North America. And what that means is I focus on providing end-to-end solutions to our partners that solve the business problems of their customers. And I'm very excited here these days as I think about the seamless connectivity across campus and what will change with all that bandwidth readily at the hands of the students and the instructors. So I'm very excited to be part of this evolution of the learning technology.
Go ahead, Ron.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ron Sheps. I'm with the Westcon Group, and we're distributors of Ericsson equipment. What's a distributor? If you bought a bottle of Coca-Cola this morning, that store probably didn't buy the Coca-Cola from Atlanta. There was somebody in the middle, and that's what we do. My role is to make sure that these world-class and worldwide solutions are made available for local solutions. And we do that by attending American Society of Engineering Education, ACUDA, EDUCAUSE, bringing together the different segments to determine exactly what solutions we're going to need.
Thank you, Ron. It's great to see how Westcon impacts that education space. I will share with you guys that we had a third panelist who had travel difficulty and wasn't able to make it. So I'll probably throw a few curveballs to these guys and ask them some questions on my list, and we'll see how well prepared they are for questions they're not quite certain they were going to get. And I'll introduce myself quickly. My name's Amy McCune, and I'm our executive sponsor of the education segment at Ericsson. So gentlemen, today, based on your unique perspectives and experiences, I really hope that you guys can share your insights on connectivity on the campus, where it's headed, and how it can impact education and learning. So I think if it's all right, Ron, I will start with you and ask you, what changes are you seeing occur in the education space that are affecting communication networks and the way you see learning happening at school?
Well, let's talk about some of the key trends and drivers. First of all, the biggest shift we're all experiencing, of course, is mobile-centric communications. Students are bringing with them today the devices to campus that they want. Bring your own device. I don't think any of us envisioned that that meant coming to campus with 5 and 6 devices and hooking them up every day. We're seeing this evolution away from the comfort we had with PBXs, that we had a century to really perfect them, and they did everything they needed for the technology of their time. We're migrating away from the way we communicate by voice as well. We need solutions that can move the data from campus to campus, whether it's one big attached campus or there's a city-wide network. How do you move that? Can you go with fiber? Can we go with trenching? And of course, lastly, we want to make sure that the bandwidth that we've all become so comfortable with is there every time we need. So a very challenging time, very exciting time, and in a perpetual state for all of us of catch-up.
I think that's a great point about bandwidth that we're comfortable with. I think it's more about bandwidth that we feel like we are owed, right? No one wants latency any longer, right? You want to be able to get your score like right away. You want to be able to attach to whatever it is you want to attach to quickly, seamlessly, and then be able to get through that to your device as quickly as possible. Now I was going to ask John, connectivity demands and learning environments are accelerating, which impacts networks. So how does network management environment change for IT managers in education as this all evolves? You want to try that one out?
Sure, I'll take a crack at that one. Network management, I guess if we think back to what we were saying, the PBX days was, let's call it simple in relative terms, where it's a single solution, single vendor, the devices that are connecting to it are pre-approved and integrated. And so it effectively is simpler than today, where we've moved to an all IP world primarily, but the networks have grown over time with whether it's switching, routers, Wi-Fi, et cetera, but they're all from different vendors, which makes the integration points go up, makes the management of them difficult, and then you add BYOD on top of it, bring your own devices. The students bring those myriad of 5 devices on average per person. And again, it gets more complex, which then necessitates things like the student body moves, so does the bandwidth need across campus, meaning that you may then invest in yet more tools and or automation systems to better manage the networks of today.
So clearly, it's becoming more complex. We realize that. And that, therefore, has implication on staffing and budgets. Ron, would you care to share how you think that that's impacting this space?
I think funding, budgets, and staffing are something that we're going to see on an ongoing basis. The reality is that we're creating budgets and creating solutions for problems we never knew were going to exist. I would have never dreamed about my refrigerator wanting to get on the network. And think about the dorm shift. We're certainly not giving landlines anymore, but those are the types of devices. We have to worry about integrating voice people, data people, grounds maintenance, security people, who are all going to be working now in the same environment. We also have to worry about some of the more complex environments and how do we get the communication everywhere we need it. And of course, lastly, once we have all these different solutions, you're living this nightmare right now that we didn't anticipate. When I go home, is it my firewall? Is it my pop-up stopper? Is it my antivirus? And multiply that times every platform that you've put on campus right now, every generation, and I can't help but wonder how many GUIs you have to master in a day. So the challenges are unique, and we're addressing them one at a time.
So I think that you're probably not telling this audience anything that they don't know, I suppose. So we've laid out for you many of the challenges that you're faced with every day and trying to consider how you're going to evolve your connectivity and communication challenges on campus. So maybe I'll turn to you, John, and say, can you take us through a few minutes of how you can solve some of these problems?
Sure, Amy. To solve the problems, first you got to break it into smaller pieces here. So if we think about a single building campus as a starting point, if you will, the first point that needs to be done is maintaining a high capacity Ethernet network, if you will. Fiber optic, 10 gigabit per second capabilities are being rolled out pretty widely these days. But it's not really just the wired side, as we've heard about all the devices. It's really the Wi-Fi side becomes the more challenging area. It's more difficult to engineer, more difficult to manage, and then with all the myriad of devices that are connecting. So if you look into Wi-Fi, I would certainly suggest people consider the latest generation of Wi-Fi, which is called 802.11ac. These types of products have been shipping for a bit over a year now, and they provide up to 1.3 gigabit per second per access point, which is compared to the previous generation of Wi-Fi, which is about 600 meg. So if you think about it, it's either double the speed, or you could be supplying the same speed to twice the number of users for the given area. So certainly be considering that, because as more and more video and things are being used, you need to have the capacity in the wired and the wireless network to handle those growing needs.
So that's kind of a single building environment, I get that, but students aren't very stationary, and they're out walking around. So my next question is, how do you manage that outdoor environment and multi-locations?
Sure. Well, and certainly in single building, you can still be outside as well. But it's a good point. In a larger campus with multiple buildings, students will be going from dorm room to classroom, for example. And these days, they expect to be connected. And quite frankly, if I was going to school these days and still had my same sleeping habits where I'd get up late every day and be missing my class, I'd probably want to be listening to the live stream of that class on my way to the building. So these days, that can be provided with outdoor Wi-Fi, very prevalent, mature products in the Wi-Fi segment, and it does not have to be super complex either. It can be simply taking, say, the side of the dorm building or other building and using an outdoor Wi-Fi access point that has directional antennas, so it's being very efficient in its use of energy to service just the area down, let's call it the path of where most of the students will be. So certainly, universities and everybody should be looking beyond the walls of the building and leveraging outdoor Wi-Fi to fill in those gaps of connecting the campus between the buildings.
It definitely seems that in my experience, oh, I'm sorry, Ron, go ahead.
I want to mention, too, that some of the challenges also present opportunities. And the ability today that we never anticipated of being able to communicate with every student on campus simultaneously in case of emergency has been a tremendous benefit that, once again, we didn't anticipate this opportunity coming out of a challenge. And I think that's how we want to look at this as well.
Absolutely. A campus-wide network enables the university to retain that end-to-end communication setup rather than just relying on commercial cell phones and phone number lists, if you will.
I think the thing about outdoor access points for Wi-Fi is, one, while it's been around, I don't think it's real commonly deployed, because I think that folks imagine there's a high degree of capacity required, when, to your point, you can be directional in nature, and there's study patterns on through traffic, and you can aim them at just where the student population most likely is going to be, right?
Yes, and I can actually, to bring that even further where the population will be, on the larger campuses, you also have areas like large auditoriums and sporting venues where you will have a large number of people together. And so being able to leverage a Wi-Fi portfolio that has what would be called venue-based solutions, which then take that to another level where you can literally hone in on a particular section of the auditorium or stadium and provide service to that particular group, is also capabilities that are coming about in the latest generation of Wi-Fi. There's also further solutions, for example, and it's not just servicing pointing the Wi-Fi to where the students are. It's also how you manage the traffic on top of that. And by that I mean, for example, if you're in a large auditorium and 1,000 students are going to be watching a live video stream simultaneously of something along those lines, each student will get its own stream across those access points. Very inefficient. So there's a concept or a technology called multicast, which is not in and of itself new, but multicast enables users to watch the same stream. So one stream per access point, everybody in the area watches it, and all the rest of the bandwidth is available. Now, in a Wi-Fi context, that was historically not a very high-quality way of watching video. But today, there are solutions that better optimize that without consuming, while still maintaining the efficiency of the available bandwidth to enable multicast of, say, live video streaming or the same video stream, if you will, to multiple people simultaneously.
Thank you for that clarity. So I don't know where folks are from in the room, but my vision typically of campus is a non-contiguous environment. Maybe even today where you see universities outgrowing their space and they've moved across through a couple of streets of residential or across a highway. How do you ensure connectivity cost efficiently with effectiveness in those type of scenarios?
Good question, Amy. In a similar fashion, certainly you can leverage the directionality of the various antenna types and things to supply Wi-Fi to the people walking down the street. However, the actual more interesting case here is actually how you connect the other building to begin with,
right,
because you're crossing a public right-of-way, or maybe it's a couple blocks of retail or residential. And so there's a bunch of different options that may be leveraged, things like leased lines from the local carrier or trenching your own fiber, which I heard Ron saying earlier, both of which have either a high upfront cost or a high recurring cost, and both have a long time to being in service. So in that scenario, I'd highly suggest people consider what we would call wireless fiber. Wireless fiber you may know by other terms such as microwave and millimeter wave. It's effectively a radio-based point-to-point communication link that has all the speeds and benefits of fiber, going from 100 meg to multi-gigabit per second, with no recurring fees, can be managed by the university, and this comes from the carrier side of engineering, if you will, where the products are all built to a 5 nines capability. What that means, 99.999% availability, means less than 5 minutes of downtime per year.
John, so I got to ask you. So I live in Connecticut. Here we are in Boston. There's going to be 5,000 tons of leaves, followed by, unfortunately, another 40,000 pounds of snow. Are these line-of-sight solutions going to work here?
Absolutely, actually, and at least for the Ericsson portfolio, we are the world's largest vendor of microwave-style solutions. They're in all parts of the world, running in Greenland, caked in ice and snow, still keeping their links up and running, the bandwidth there. They're also in the hottest parts of the desert, as well as you talk about leaves and things, and that's what we call a non-line-of-sight case, where there's either something either impeding the site, or even you got to bounce around buildings because you don't necessarily have a direct line. And the portfolios do support all these types of cases, and then it comes down to which product, which frequencies, because there's some physics involved, but it's all fully supported so that one can get that high bandwidth connection from point A to point B over distances of, it might be across the street or miles, tens of miles.
So what you're saying is wireless fiber is kind of like an invisible pipe.
Yes.
It's pretty big, you can get a lot of data through it. It's highly reliable,
Yes.
not going to go down on you, it can stand a lot of weather conditions. Doesn't take a long time to deploy, and it's probably a quarter of the cost as if you were to trench that fiber for the same solution.
That's correct. Trenching fiber in a municipality area could easily be upwards of $100,000 per mile trenched, whereas you can easily get a 100 meg equivalent link, if you will, for, as you say, a quarter of the cost one time, and be up and running very quickly. In about 2 weeks' time, start to finish, one could install such a connection.
So we've talked about connectivity, Wi-Fi, wireless fiber, unified communications. How do you then go implement that, seamlessly, cost-effectively, and how do you use it from a communication perspective, be it student to student or student to educator?
Certainly. So we started early on talking about things like PBXs, and Ron was talking about campus-wide communications. And certainly the IP network here now can be leveraged with a unified communications capability, which provides the same voice capabilities that people have traditionally been aware or been using. So for example, when I was back in school, that's about all we got was a voice line for the dorm room, and then we used dial-up to get to the mainframe for email. But today, you're not connecting rooms anymore, you're really connecting people. And so that Wi-Fi network adds that mobility. And then with the rise of smartphones and applications, the UC application user clients that run on those, all the different variations of devices, iPhone, Android, tablets, laptops, can all be leveraged. And it's not just voice. We're talking about video communications, presence, and messaging capabilities, all in one cohesive setup.
And you don't have to use or learn a lot of different applications to make that work.
No, that's correct. It was same user interface across the myriad of devices, so it's just one system for the entire population, whether student or instructor, to be familiar with.
That's an enhanced way to manage the basics. That sounds really enticing, but how do you use connectivity to actually maybe change the game as far as how you learn and educate?
So absolutely, using the same unified communication setup, it effectively is a video conferencing system. It has screen sharing and whiteboarding capabilities, so I could easily be sitting in my dorm room and having a whiteboard session with a teaching assistant, trying to figure out if I'm doing my problem set correct, as opposed to walking across campus to wherever he or she may be set up. That's an easy example. Group projects, of course, also fall right into this category of screen sharing and whiteboarding and real-time video conferencing. These systems can also be set up in group meeting rooms or group work rooms in a permanent fashion, which then can be leveraged again for a multi-party video conference, whether it's with people there on campus or even on other campuses or across the world. All again using that same user interface, so everybody's familiar with what to do when you go into another facility and use it. It's
Not like
effectively all
learning
the
new
same.
technology.
That's correct.
Got it, got it. So we've talked a lot about connectivity, how you improve it, different ways to leverage it from basic to enhancing education. So that's kind of confined to that campus environment. I'll shift gears a little bit, Ron, and ask you, so how is technology enabling communities to better prepare students to join our 21st century workforce as they leave that campus environment?
Thanks, Amy. Probably for me, the best question, moving from features to benefits. Like many of you in the room, I've taught, and I remember what brought me to teaching, and that was, on a certain level, to address the biggest divide in this country, and that's the opportunity divide. What's a benefit? What should we be striving for? We received a request for proposal a while back from Harlingen, Texas. The University of Texas down there was trying to put together a jobs plan and program that would incorporate the VOTEX, incorporate the high school, incorporate the industrial area, as well as the Maquiladora right over the border. And what they put together was a system whereby everybody gets together and talks about job needs over the years to come. How many draftsmen are they going to need? How many computer-aided design specialists are they going to need? How many manufacturers? And they go out and recruit the students. But of course, in an environment like Harlingen, it wasn't enough to give them the tools on campus. It had to become a Wi-Fi solution so that when the students went home at night, they had access to the learning. And when I aspire to what we can use technology for, that's always the vision I have.
That's a very compelling example, I think, of how technology can actually, enhance the opportunity for folks who may not have had exposure to learning in such a fashion. So it makes me ask you, what else has WestConn done? Can you give us any other examples in the education space?
Up in Cincinnati is the University of Cincinnati, which has a huge engineering department. And one of the things they do is CAD and testing. And what that means is you can make a two-dimensional drawing of a truck, extrude it into 3D, assign it to principles of a material, and give it a thermoelastic stress analysis on what's going to happen to that truck driving a road in Minnesota for a year, and then determine how much metal you need. Once they're done with that, they take all that information and they have to ship it down to their sister campus in Mexico City. And the University of Mexico, Mexico City, has 50 professors from the University of Cincinnati there on a regular basis. The initial challenge for us, how do you move data like that seamlessly and keep everything else functioning at the same time? So probably the earliest, biggest challenge that I remember was making that a seamless solution. Not long after that, University of Maryland, your classic example of a university spread out literally across the city. Very unique needs because there's different bandwidth requirements around Washington, D.C. There's different ways to move around the campus. To come up with a seamless solution that you can drive from campus to campus and stay connected was a challenge that was unique for its time. And of course, the most recent example, right up the road here is Brandeis, where two of my boys and most of my money went for 8 years. And what they wanted to do was create a network, not only for the campus, and if you're familiar with it, it's a sprawling campus across woods, many different sites. They created a network that was ubiquitous. And they took it a step forward and once again used it as an opportunity. They gave students an email address for life. They gave them a registration for the job center. They plugged them into the alumni organization right away. So once again, taking these opportunities and challenges, turning them to solutions, and bring them all together. It's an exciting time. I don't know what's going to be next. We're looking forward to it.
Good. Those are great examples of WestConn's commitment to education and really understanding the environment and the challenges that universities face. Ericsson's been delivering the Network Society message for some time, and again, we firmly believe that by 2020 there'll be 50 billion connected devices, and where everyone and everything that is needing a connection will be connected. So we're a technology leader, and I think what I'd like to ask you to do, John, is tell us a little bit about specific technology, maybe in a more visual fashion, that provides end-to-end solutions in a campus environment.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. And as you've already heard a little bit, that Ericsson certainly has solutions that cover the Wi-Fi aspects we talked about. You heard wireless fiber earlier, and unified communications. But to the point of being able to visually show that, I have an animated PowerPoint. Let me see if it works here. There we go. And as a use case here of a private college, 4,000 students, multi-site campus, in a kind of a challenging environment for connecting everybody out and about. And in this case, of course, the needs are for that pervasive campus-wide connectivity across Wi-Fi and other mechanisms. So when you think about, as the networks have been built over time, they come together in pieces, and this one, if we try to build out to see, so at the top left corner, we have a law campus, there's an undergraduate campus in the middle here, and a graduate campus at the bottom, effectively 3 separate campuses, and they have been built out with different combinations of Wi-Fi, video conferencing, voice solutions, and switching, all from different vendors, which means there's different integration points, different management points, multiple management systems. And this is just the fact of the nature as to how the network evolved over time. So it becomes a little bit more challenging to manage it on an ongoing basis with the ever-increasing needs. So, and on top of it all, because there's multiple voice systems that may not have been integrated, may even be inefficient with 10-digit dialing between campuses, for example. So if we were to take a look at it from an Ericsson perspective and show how we would handle this, we would we leverage the Ericsson switching as the base underlying bandwidth connected to the Wi-Fi, both indoor and outdoor, as well as the video conferencing and communication solution that I was referring to before, with a single user interface so that you can do your voice, video, multi-party video conferencing. Of course, a simple voice setup as well, such that 4-digit dialing across the campuses is certainly possible, as well as off campus as well. That then connect, as well as the wireless fiber to fill in the holes of buildings that are either just off campus or maybe even want pop-up connectivity, we'd call, where let's say you're going to collect in a field for a while or something for a big campus event, and you want some sort of Wi-Fi or something out there, you can connect that up to wireless fiber and tear it down at the end of the event as well. So it brings you a bunch more opportunities for the connection. And then on top of it all, it's great that it's a single management system at the end of the day to handle these myriad of different types of devices, to make it a lot simpler to be aware of and monitoring. And so effectively, at the end of the day, end up connecting not just the learning areas, but also the dorm rooms and study areas, landline and wireless, indoor and outdoor, as well as, it then supports other systems that the university may be needing, whether it's security cameras, security call phones, point-of-sale machines for the campus bookstore, whatever else it may be. As well as the high-density areas, so the venues where there'll be a high collection of students, and so suddenly the management becomes more important. However, it will, in a Wi-Fi scenario, it will automatically manage that network by varying things like the power levels of the various access points to balance the load across the available access points in the area. So it becomes much more hands-off of management. And you can see here kind of a summary where we talk about expand, update Wi-Fi, the management collaboration, and security monitoring, and the ability for pop-up connectivity. So in a nutshell, this is a visual way I have of providing a view in terms of the Ericsson individual products, but looked at it as an end-to-end campus connectivity solution.
So again, to be clear, the management of those leverages all the same interface, whether you've got Wi-Fi or wireless fiber or your communications solution.
That's correct. We offer a unified management system that aggregates all that together, so you can hierarchically drill down into, okay, which campus, which building, which floor, and where the various issues are, color-coded heat maps and things of this nature.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that for me as a visual learner. I think that's good. Yeah?
Is that cloud-based, or do you have to host your
So the management systems can be done in either fashion. For example, at University of Baja California, there's a multi-site Wi-Fi network, but it is managed centrally with centralized cloud-based style offerings that either the university can run it from a central location, a third party could be running it as a managed service, if you will. Both options are possible.
Got it, great. So if I can ask you guys to give me a bit of a summary, if you would leave this group with what you think the most important point you want to make to them, and I would start with you, Ron, to give John a break there.
I would say build ubiquitous network for learning. Make sure that it's safe how it works and what it contains. Use it as a vehicle to secure the assets of the university, and certainly use it to secure the population of the university. If you can do all that while enabling learning, then at the end of the day, you've done your job.
Makes sense, thank you. John?
From my perspective, I would highly suggest looking at end-to-end solutions rather than just a best of breed of a particular box. Try to look at a cohesive end-to-end solution, minimize those number of integration points so that it becomes a lot easier to manage, and then so you can spend more time on the important things, which is the students and what they're actually doing with it.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. I'll ask what other questions we might have from the audience. That was a great one. Oh, come on, be brave. Okay.
You talk about microwave solutions for high-speed wireless connectivity between sites. Do you offer laser solutions, or like what's the difference? You're talking about line of sight, things impeding the line of sight and whatnot. I'm always concerned about blasting tons and tons of energy into open spaces. So.
All right, so the question here was regarding the wireless fiber microwave solutions and whether we also offer laser-based optical type solutions as well. We do not offer a laser type. We leverage microwave, and it's very manageable. It can be very tuned to, you're asked about power levels and blanketing an area. We actually, with our systems, will automatically adjust to just the minimum power level that's absolutely necessary, because quite frankly, that's actually what we call, what we call eco mode, which actually keeps your power consumption down as well to manage your total cost of ownership. And then in terms of, the frequencies run the gamut from 6 gigahertz on up to 80, depending on what you want to do, what kind of bandwidth, what your line of sight or non-line of sight conditions are to deal with that. And so we, through our partners, we provide them with all the various tools to plan those links from wherever it needs to go from or to. What you're going to do for a 60-mile hop is a lot different than what you're going to do crossing the street.
Does that help answer the question a little bit? Got it, good. Okay, if you guys have some one-off questions, I encourage you to grab us after the session ends. But I'll just summarize that, we hope the dialogue today has inspired your thinking a little bit and demonstrated how Ericsson and Westcon can help you with your connectivity and communication challenges. We feel like we understand the environment that you're operating in, and we certainly understand technology. Ericsson's a global market share leader when it comes to technology, in particular the ICT space, and we sit on many industry standard boards to include Wi-Fi. So what I think you'll find is our solutions are built to perform, and they're highly durable. And as John had mentioned, they integrate seamlessly with each other, which we think makes the ease of deployment super more effective and easy, as well as obviously managing them on an ongoing basis. So I'd like to thank you guys for your time and say, if you would like to speak to us afterwards, we'll be available. We're also in the trade show floor, booth number 619, and appreciate you making the time to join us, and have a great day.
Thank you.